Thank you so very much for joining us today. We are very excited to have you. Thank you for taking the time. Welcome again to today's presentation. My name is Ikuya Asari Enim, and I use she, her pronouns. Some of you may have met me out in the field or out on the road. For those of you who haven't, I look forward to meeting you sometime soon. I am an international recruitment specialist here at the University of Waterloo, but most importantly, I am also a proud graduate from this university. I studied international development under the Faculty of Environment. Today, we have some amazing folks from the admissions team joining me as well, and I'd like them to come up and introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amelia Burton, and I'm the Assistant Registrar of Admissions here at the University of Waterloo. I'm also a proud graduate from our Biomedical Sciences program, and I'm happy to be here to answer any of your questions today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Amelia. And we also have Mark, Akila, and Tatum from the admissions team join us. So these will be the amazing individuals supporting with answering your questions in the chat. So please feel free to put them in as we go along. And then finally, we have a student ambassador, Noor, and Noor is also going to be here with us during this session. Noor, can you come up and introduce yourself, please?
Hello, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending where you are. My name is Noor Ibrahim Abrar. I'm a 2A medicinal chemistry student, and my pronouns are she, her. I am originally from Eritrea, born and raised in Asmara, but I lived in Ghana before coming here as an international student. I am happy to be here with you today.
Thank you, all of you, for joining today. Truly, truly appreciate the support having you on this webinar. And thank you all again for taking the time to sit in on this webinar. So what are we going to be covering today? So today we're going to be telling you why Waterloo is a great institution to study at, how to complete the first step of the application process, which is through the Ontario University Application Center website, what the next steps will be once you submit that application. And then at the end, we will open it up to questions. We will be answering some questions out loud or live. But like I said, as we go through this presentation, please submit your questions in the Q&A so we can answer them as we go along. So, why the University of Waterloo? There are a number of aspects that make the University of Waterloo really stand out. And one of the main things is our our focus on hands-on experiential learning. This can be seen through our cooperative education program, through our field work, through our courses, through our entrepreneurial ecosystem. There are a variety of ways that students are receiving that experience. But one very popular one is through our cooperative education program. So what this means is by the time you graduate from Waterloo, you would have gained the skills to make you employable and to prepare you for the workforce and for graduate school if that is an option. And then you also stand a better chance of finding a career that you really love and landing a job right after graduation. There are extremely huge earning benefits to the co-op program, and a lot of our students enrolled here at Waterloo are using earnings that they acquire from the co-op program to start to pay off some of that tuition. And also, co-op is also a great way for most of our grads to earn work faster when they graduate, as our graduates are getting paid more compared to other graduates here in Ontario. You can learn a bit more about the co-op program, why co-op is amazing here at Waterloo, and what makes co-op very special here at Waterloo in our next webinar. We would love for you to register to join our next webinar because we'll be talking in depth about the co-op program, its benefits. If you're on the fence on whether or not to apply to co-op, this will be a great opportunity to join this session and learn more. This session is going to be on November the 5th. So please scan the barcode or the QR code up on the screen or follow the link to register for our next session. At this point, I would like to bring Noor back on to learn a bit more about her story. Noor, could you tell us why you applied to Waterloo and what your experience has been here thus far?
Thank you, Akira, for the opportunity. Um, yes, why University of Waterloo? So it was October 2023, and then I was thinking about, okay, so what's happening next? I'm in my final year of high school, and next year I'm supposed to be at university. So what do I want to do? And the thing with the university and how it's different from high school is that in high school you have like courses that they have assigned you to take, and you're basically taking those courses as you go along. But when it comes to university, you get to choose what you want to do, what courses you want to take, and where you want to go next with that. So that was a bit of a tough decision. Then I just decided, okay, like, let me just see what my passion is and then try to pursue it. And I've always loved science, and I have grown in like among a lot of people. So I had a large community around me. So I thought, okay, what if I bring something that merged like big communities and science together? And then I thought of pharmacy. I was like, okay, I could be doing pharmacy. Uh, but then pharmacy here in Canada, and Canada was my first choice in terms of country, was a second entry. So you have to have some post-secondary credits for you to go to school of pharmacy. So I was like, okay, well, this is a little confusing. Like, what am I supposed to take before going to pharmacy? So that means in my first year, I'm not going to be in school of pharmacy. So there was like a lot of uncertainties that came with it. But then it was University of Waterloo that had the answer to all my questions, and it was that there was this program called CAP, which is Conditional Admission to Pharmacy, and no other universities around Canada offer it except University of Waterloo. And I was like, oh, this is what I'm looking for. This is the solution because when I apply for any general science in my first year to get my post-secondary credits, I'm also going to be in CAP, which will equip me to go to school of pharmacy in like 2 years, as well as guaranteeing me a position there. So it was just a clearer path for me. And then I came to University of Waterloo as an honor science student pre-pharmacy. And then during my first year, which was last year, I discovered that I had a different vision. I was like, oh, I'm more interested in drug synthesis than I'm interested in drug administration. But here was the good news. I was at University of Waterloo where there's just a lot of options. So I figured out that what I wanted to do is medicinal chemistry, but there was also other options like biochemistry or general chemistry. So I was very uncertain of what I would want to like switch into, but still, that wasn't a deal because there is just a lot of people here to help you. There were academic counselors, and because I'm an international student, there was also immigration consultants that helped me kind of like be okay, what can you do now to get your co-op work permit? Because the program I came with was just a regular program, so I did not have a co-op work permit, and me switching to a co-op program would require me to get a permit. So after all these consultations, I finally made the switch. So I'm now a medicinal chemistry student, and I'm just happy to be in a co-op program. I'm happy to pursue something I really like. And what really interested me and like what I've learned from this entire process throughout this year is that at University of Waterloo, it's not just me kind of finding my program, it was me finding my purpose. And yes, thank you for getting this slide here. This is a post that was posted in our senior high school Instagram page, and I can't believe what I said at that time and what I was thinking was like my purpose in life is to find my purpose and give my whole heart to it. So I think I'm just living my words right now, and that really makes me happy.
Thank you so much, Noor. Like literally listening to your story is giving me goose pimples because I remember when I first met Noor in Ghana a couple years ago, and her passion just oozed out to the conversation. So to see her share her story today is extremely rewarding. And this is why I do what I do here at Waterloo is basically seeing your progression and seeing your growth through the program from beginning to end. Really heartwarming. So really, really thank you so much for sharing that stories. It's an out of body experience right now. Thank you so very much for sharing that experience, Noah. Really appreciate it. I hope that was an inspiring one, and I hope you took some tidbits out of there with regards to her experience. At this point, we are going to sort of head into why we're here today to learn more about the application process. So I will hand it over to Amelia to take over.
Thank you, Akuya. To get started, this is a little bit of a brief overview of what you'll need to do when you want to apply to Waterloo. Over the next little bit, we'll talk about the different stages of an application, the different things that we're looking for, and how you can complete that application at Waterloo. We'll start by talking about where you will apply to Waterloo through the Ontario University Application Centre. The fee to apply is $156, and then there's also a supplemental document fee of $90 Canadian. There's additional program fees for both architecture and engineering only, that is $60 Canadian. Each program that you're looking at applying to at Waterloo will have specific admission requirements and other requirements outside of your grades, and we'll talk a little bit more about what those might look like. We might also require an English language test. We'll link to where exactly you'll be able to find additional information on what those admission requirements look like on upcoming slides. As I mentioned, the first step is applying on the Ontario University Application Centre, or the OUAC. The first step here is to create your account. We recommend not using your current high school email address, as you'll likely lose access to this as you complete your high school education, and we don't want you to miss out on important emails from us. After you have completed and created your account, you'll be able to then hit next and start application. When you're completing the different steps on the OUAC, there are different things that we're looking for. The first is what's called my personal details. This includes information like your date of birth, citizenship, language, and contact information. And as we said, make sure you're not using that email address from your school, because this will be important that you continue to check throughout your application. That's where important information will go from us, including next steps in your application and any exciting updates on that application. The next piece you're including is your background. This includes your educational background, telling us a little bit more about where you've attended school prior to applying to the university. The next is your choices. This is where you get to select the programs that you want to apply to. You'll select both the university and then also the program that you want to apply to. The OUAC is the hub for all universities found in the province of Ontario in Canada. That means that when you're applying, you get to pick a max of 3 choices at one university. So you can apply to 3 different programs at the University of Waterloo, or 3 programs at 3 different universities in the province of Ontario. And you'll be asked to rank your choices. Waterloo does not penalize you for ranking. We'll make a decision on all of your applications, regardless of where they've been ranked on your application. We'll also ask you to submit any supporting documents. This is where you'll select if you're a Group A or Group B applicant. OUAC will provide details about who should be in each of those groups. There's more information on the website there, and you'll be able to find that full link to OUAC through the QR code. The final step here is, of course, reviewing your application, making sure that you're happy with all of your choices, and submitting the final payment to finalize your application. This is a chance for you to double check everything's correct, pay that application fee. Depending on how you pay, there might be a slight delay for that payment to clear before Waterloo then receives your application. After you have applied on the OUAC, after you've submitted your application, that's just the first step when you're applying to the University of Waterloo. Between 24 to 48 hours after you've applied on the OUAC, once your payment clears, you'll receive an email from us with the subject line, "We've received your application." And this will include next steps in the application process. In this email, there will be a one-time use PIN that you'll need to create your password for the Waterloo applicant portal. Once you've logged into the applicant portal, you'll be able to see your Waterloo applicant number, which will be helpful to take note of in case you need to email us about anything to do with your application. Inside this Waterloo applicant portal, you'll see a really simple checklist that will provide customized options for you on what you need to do on your application. These checklists will differ by program that you've applied to, and it's important that you're completing each of these items on the checklist. The first one that we'll ask you to do is your Declaration of Academic Experience. This Declaration of Academic Experience, or DAE, is very quick to complete, and it will also provide us with information about your 4 most recent years of education. It will also help us to understand what documents will be required for your application and to make sure that you're aware of deadlines for your program and so that you can just submit your documents as soon as possible so that we can start to review your application for the university. I mentioned that the DAE is the first thing that we ask you to complete on your checklist. It takes less than 5 minutes to complete, and without it, we can't view your application. This will help us determine what documents you might need to provide, if any. As I mentioned, it's a very quick piece to complete, and it won't take you very long at all. Once you have clicked on the Declaration of Academic Experience, then you'll see some brief instructions. It will ask you to select the country in which you've studied, your study level, and your system of study for each of your 4 last academic years. We have academic years in Canada from September to August, and that's where you'll see the academic year listed there. Once you've completed each of those 4 years, you'll then declare that the information you've submitted is complete, correct, and done entirely by you. You'll hit submit, and then you're done with the DAE. Nice and easy, shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes. And we strongly recommend, as I mentioned, that you complete this as soon as possible so you have more time to complete any other items on your checklist before the document deadline. Within an hour of submitting the DAE, you'll see an updated checklist on any actions you need to take. You'll also receive an email with next steps and additional information. Some of you will have to submit additional documents. This could be things like official transcripts, proof of English language proficiency, or an admission information form, video interview, portfolio, or other supplementary additional documents. All of this will be listed on your applicant portal, so you don't need to remember what those additional things are. You'll be able to see them all in your checklist and make sure that you're completing everything that's listed there, and it will designate when those checklist items are completed. For students that are applying to math or engineering programs, in addition to the AIF, you'll also be required to complete something called the supplementary information form, which will ask you 2 or 3 additional questions about your program of choice. I mentioned the admission information form, and this is something you might have seen if you were looking into admission requirements for the University of Waterloo. If you are applying to the Geography and Aviation, Science and Aviation, any of the programs in the Faculty of Math, including Computer Science, as well as the programs in the Faculty of Engineering, excluding the Architecture program, then we will ask you to complete the AIF. This is an opportunity for you to brag about yourself, tell us a little bit more about who you are outside of your grades. We want to better understand who you are as an applicant. Tell us about your passions, community involvement, and goals. You can view the questions that will be on the AIF on the website, so you can start thinking about your answers and preparing what you want to include on that AIF. But we highly recommend that you complete the AIF as soon as possible. Don't wait until the deadline in case there's any issues or errors on your submission, and then you can ask any questions that you might have through the process. Question 1 asks you to tell us about a strong interest of yours, including how and when you've become involved, how long you've been involved for, what you've learned about yourself from it, and how you apply this knowledge as a student at Waterloo. The second is looking at how have you been involved within the community? Is there a group, organization, or another community group that you've been involved in? Talk about how you've contributed to that group, some of the influences you've had, and your involvement that have made the community better. Question 3 will ask you to describe a situation in which you were treated unfairly or where you witnessed someone else being treated unfairly. What did you do and why? Would you do anything differently if the same thing happened today? And has the event impacted or changed who you are? And if so, how? Question 4 is all about your goals for Waterloo. It wants to know, what is your primary goal for attending? How have you explored or been exposed to the field that you're applying to at the university? And do you have any advice? Have you received any advice from anyone in exploring alternate options or backup plans for your goal if needed? And finally, I mentioned the last question is looking more for a list. And this is asking you to share what you've been involved in outside of the classroom and outside of your studies and the number of hours that you've been involved within the past 12 months. We recommend when you're completing the AIF, we know that it can be intimidating. This is the longest piece for a lot of you on your application, including those short answers. But remember, this is all about you. So take your time and follow some of these tips to write a strong AIF. Being truthful and open in your AIF is important and highly valued at Waterloo. We read thousands and thousands of AIFs every year, and so it's easy to tell if you're being genuine. And this is really our chance to learn a little bit more about you. Don't write what you think Waterloo wants to hear, but make sure that you're talking about your authentic self and providing us with more information about who you are as a person. We highly recommend that you are completing this yourself. Don't rely on someone else to do the AIF for you. It's very easy to tell if you're being authentic, and it's easy to tell when your answers don't match who you are. No one knows you better than yourself, so make sure to avoid turning to others to help complete this AIF. Make sure you start early. As I mentioned, we don't want you to run into any errors or tech issues with the AIF, so don't leave it until the last minute. Start early. You have access to the questions online, so you can prepare your answers and make sure that you are feeling confident with those before you submit them. A good idea is to take a look at the questions, write those answers in a document first, return to that document, review them again before you feel you're ready to submit. Also, make sure you're being clear and concise. It's not a long essay. We're looking again for short answers, and each question has a total character limit. And so it's make sure that you are understanding what that is and how to stay within that. And of course, proofread. Readers won't be impressed by spelling or grammar errors. So make sure that you look over your work and catch any mistakes before you submit the IF to us. In addition to any of the additional things you're doing outside of the classroom, for some of you, if your first language, sorry, is not English and you have not studied in an English language school system for the 4 years immediately before beginning your studies at Waterloo, you must meet or exceed the minimum scores required for one of the accepted English language tests. You can see all of those accepted tests listed on the screen here. For example, TOEFL, IELTS, Cambridge Assessment, Duolingo, or English for Academic Access. Your testing center will send your results electronically to Waterloo once you've provided permission to do so. If you are academically admissible, you meet all of our grade requirements, but your English language scores are slightly lower than required, you'll be automatically considered for our Bridge to Academic Success in English, or our BASE pathway program where applicable. You cannot apply directly to the BASE program, but you can learn more about BASE on our website or at the link on this slide here. The next important thing to talk about is deadlines. I've mentioned a couple of times that it's important to complete all of your checklist items in your applicant portal by the posted deadlines. The application deadline for most programs, so to be able to have your application completed and finalized on the OUAC, is January 30th. If you're applying to an engineering program, excluding architecture, you'll need to submit your application on the OUAC by January 15th. For most programs, all of your documents are going to be required by February 13th, and for engineering, they're required by January 30th. Once you've applied, you can expect to hear from us with an admission decision as early as December. But most of our offers will go out between March and May once we've received your first and second term grades. For our most competitive programs, the majority of decisions will be sent out in May. If you are an international student and you receive an offer of admission to Waterloo, you may need to apply for a provincial attestation letter and submit a tuition deposit before applying for your Canadian study permit. If you've been admitted to a co op program, you'll also want to apply to a co op work permit in your study permit application. Study permits can have longer processing times, so it's important to take these steps as soon as possible to avoid delays that might impact your studies. More details about this process will be shared with you if you receive an offer, but we wanted to take a quick moment to share some information now so that you have this in your mind and you're ready to take these steps as soon as possible.
Thank you so much for sharing such in-depth information on the application process, Amelia. I truly appreciate it. So a couple questions coming up in the chat, and we'll be moving on to the Q&A portion in a bit. But I do want to remind you that we do have scholarships here at Waterloo. Scholarships range between 1,000 to 80,000, dependent on the program you're applying to. So please take a scan of that QR code, visit our website, look up the information on scholarships, be very mindful of the deadlines. Some scholarships are automatic and others may require an application. So be very, very mindful of that, especially with the deadlines. So like Amelia mentioned before, very, very important to be mindful of those deadlines coming up, either to submit your application or to submit your grades, simply because it's a really hard to deadline stated on the website as Amelia mentioned. So very mindful of that, and also to start applying early. So not to run into any technical issues should you be cutting it very close. But then again, as I said, we do have some scholarships. So go on our website, look up scholarships. And if you have any questions with regards to the scholarship application process or the scholarships of interest, please feel free to send us an email and we'll be more than happy to respond to your questions. We will be sharing our emails at the end of the presentation. At this point, we're going to move on to the questions in the Q&A. So if you haven't put your question in the chat, in the Q&A function, this will be a good time to put your questions in there and we will be responding to them live. So there are a couple that have come up. Amelia, let's see. So there's one that comes up very frequently with regards to taking courses online or out of day school and what the impacts are on your application.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for programs in the Faculty of Engineering or in the Faculty of Mathematics, including computer science, if you are taking a course outside of your regular day school in summer school, or you're repeating a course, it could jeopardize your admissions. So, we could apply a penalty on your application. We recommend that you take all of your courses during your regular day school and that you are only taking courses once and not repeating courses, especially for those required courses for those faculties. For the faculties outside of math and engineering, we do not have any penalties for courses outside of day school or for any repeated courses. So it's just the math and engineering faculties that are looking at those two different pieces. You are able to provide some additional information on your supplementary information form for both engineering and math that will ask if you've taken those courses outside of day school or if you've repeated courses and why. You'll be able to provide that explanation on that additional form, and those are all read through your application process, and that will be taken into consideration as well.
Will they also be able to update their OUAC account once they submit their application?
Yes, you can. Up until our program's close, so the application deadline, you can continue to update your OUAC. I mentioned you can apply to up to 3 programs at Waterloo. So if you initially only apply to one and want to add additional or change the program you've applied to, you can do that through your OUAC. You would need to go back to that Ontario University Application Center and update your application directly there. It's not done through Waterloo. So make sure you keep your login handy for OUAC in case you want to make any of those updates.
For students interested in programs that require an interview or a portfolio, could you speak a bit more to what the interview will look like for engineering specifically?
Sure. For engineering, the interview is done online. So it's done through an online platform. You will be given a question, and then your answer will be recorded, and it's a timed answer. There are some FAQs on the engineering virtual interview and exactly what that will look like that's available on our engineering future student website. Highly recommend if you haven't had a chance to read any of those yet. That would be really helpful to help answer any of your additional questions about the engineering interview. That will provide you with some additional information and any of the programs like software or systems that do require the interview as well for the application.
Thank you. We also have a question around, one second here, around where the average is coming from. So are we going to be looking at the 11th grade or the 12th grade, since some students wouldn't have completed those courses before the deadlines?
That's a great question. I mentioned that admissions can happen as early as December, and the last round of admission that will happen in mid-May. In December, for students that have started their final year in August or September, we will only have your midterm grades. And therefore, when we're making those offers of admission, we'll use a combination of your grade 11 as well as your grade 12 grades to make that admission decision. As we continue to get updated grades from your high school, we will continue to use those grades in our different admissions rounds. As we get your final first semester grades, we can use again a combination of those plus your grade 11 grades. By May, that's when we will have your final first semester grades and your midterm grades from your second semester. And that's what we'll be using for our final round of admission. If you don't receive an offer in our first round, that does not mean that you are not receiving an offer to Waterloo. We will hold on to your application. We'll keep looking at updated grades throughout the admission cycle. And we will keep looking at any additional information like other documents that are submitted, depending on what program you're required or applying to.
Thank you. We've got a question around English proficiency. So do students enrolled in a bilingual school need to take English tests like TOEFL, etc.?
Bilingual, I'm assuming by they're talking about French.
Yes.
Bilingual, yes. Um, I they are not required to submit an English language test if they're in a bilingual school. It's if you're especially if you're studying within if you're within Canada studying in a bilingual school, but if you have not studied in English and you're outside of Canada, then it is required to submit an English language test if you're applying to the university.
Thank you for that response. So I'll also encourage, please keep sending your questions in. It seems like we're ahead of time here, but we're more than happy to respond to your questions live. So please keep them coming. Thank you for the questions you've sent thus far. Are there any common questions that you usually get every year that sort of trips students as they go through the application, Amelia?
One question I saw someone pose this in the Q&A as well. On the admission information form, question number 5 is asking for things that you've done outside of the classroom. We had a lot of questions about what timing students could include those activities. Is it something that they can include that they haven't done yet, that they know they're signed up for in the future? Or when should they kind of what's the time frame we're looking for? I mentioned that it's within 12 months. That means that if you were writing your AIF today and you are completing that chart, you would be looking at activities that you did from middle of October last year until the middle of October this year. So we're looking for the last 12 months of any of those activities that you've been involved in. So anything that's happening from now until the end of your senior year would not be included on that form. We're looking for that snapshot in what you did last year and up until now when you're completing that AIF. If you did your AIF in December, then it would be from December last year to December this year. So it's a 12-month cycle based on when you're completing that form on your AIF. That's really important to keep in mind. So I know we get a lot of questions about you're doing all these great activities in the future, which is wonderful, and that will hopefully provide you with a really exciting final year of high school. But we're just looking at that snapshot of the 12 months from when you complete your application.
And will they need to submit letters of recommendation or references with these activities that they engage in?
That's a good question. So we don't require any recommendations or anything else. And that's why when we were talking about tips for the AIF, we ask you to be truthful and to submit information that is about yourself and not having anyone else complete the AIF for you. And therefore, we do not require references or any additional information for you to submit with the AIF, just to fill out the AIF itself and the chart and the list for your activities. So no additional documentation is required. You do not need to update that to your applicant portal this year.
And there are students interested in the accounting program. In the past, we've had the School of Accounting and Financial Management Assessment Test. There's someone asking, is it true this is no longer required for this year's application?
Great question. And this came up a lot at a fair recently. And it is true that we no longer require the additional supplemental pieces to the application. So if you're applying to accounting and financial management or sustainable SFM as well, you are not required to submit anything beyond your grades. So admission to both of those programs this year will be focused on just your overall required courses and grades when you're applying to the program.
Thank you. And we talk a lot about co-op at Waterloo. We have a question around, do we evaluate more strictly for students that apply to the co-op in comparison to the regular stream?
Many of our programs offer both regular and co-op. If a student is applying, if you have both of those options, because some programs are co-op only, some are regular only, but if it is offered both as co-op and regular, sometimes the admission average cutoff is a little bit higher for co-op than it is for regular. There is no guarantee that we'll be able to look at you for the regular program if you've applied to co-op. However, for some programs, it might be the same admission requirement for both co-op and regular, and therefore it's not a higher cutoff if you're applying to co-op. So we recommend that you do your research and you're applying to either co-op or regular, whatever you think will be the best fit for you. For some of our more competitive programs, there might be a slight difference between the co-op and regular, um, but there isn't any specific guarantee that you'll be looked at for the regular program if you've only applied to co-op. If you want to ask us any additional questions about specific programs, happy to answer that. So feel free to reach out to us through my application if you're looking at your different options and trying to figure out what's the best fit for you.
There's a question about the interview a bit more. When is the video available and when is the interview process available for students interested in engineering?
For anyone that has applied to engineering, if you already have access to your applicant portal, um, I it's not the interview is not yet open, so students will not be able to complete the interview. We will send a note out to anyone that has applied to engineering once that is available, and we anticipate that will be available within the coming weeks. And the online interview again is required for software engineering applicants, and it's highly recommended for all to submit, but it's not yet available on the applicant portal. But we hope that it will be available in the next couple of weeks. And for those that have applied already, this will then show up in your checklists, and we'll be able to reach out to you directly to give you direct information on how to complete the interview.
So we have quite a lot of questions around whether this session is being recorded. It is. So if you weren't able to take all the notes, we'll have this available shortly, so you can go back, watch it at your own leisure and at your own pace. So yes, this is being recorded and will be available to you very shortly. There is another question around December admissions. So will Ontario students be considered first? What average or grades are we looking at? Are we looking at the 11th grades? What kind of average are we being considered? And will they be considered for the December cycle?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do not prioritize students from certain curriculums. So there's no priority for Ontario students in the December admission round. December admissions is our smallest round of admissions throughout the year because we're still waiting for lots of additional information. If you've applied to a program that has additional requirements beyond just grades, then you likely won't receive an offer in that first round because if we don't have a completed application, we can't yet look at providing you with an offer of admission. So December round is for students that have a completed application, all additional documentation has been completed, and any additional requirements like interview, your admission information form, your supplementary information form is also completed. I mentioned during the presentation, we'll use a combination of your grade 11 and grade 12 grades. That's not just for Ontario students. If you are from outside of Ontario or outside of the country, you'll be working directly with our admission officers, and Mark is one of those officers that's joining us on the webinar today. And they will work with you to get the documents that are required. Those will be listed in your checklist as well. As soon as they have enough grade information that shows all of either you're enrolled in or have taken the required courses, we'll be able to calculate an average for you. And we do definitely have students in December from outside of Ontario that receive offers each year. But again, it is important that you're completing your additional requirements to be considered for that December round.
Okay, thank you. So we've got two curriculum-based questions. One is asking, I noticed most programs require a minimum IB score of 30. Could you clarify how strictly this is applied and if there's any flexibility?
Good question. It really depends on what the program is that you're applying to. We provide in what is available online as well as in the view book if you have a copy of that. All of our minimum requirements are based off of last year's admission criteria and where we had the cutoff from last year. Every year, the cutoff can change slightly depending on the group of applicants that we have applying. If we have a larger group for a program in a particular year, that means that the admission requirements might go up slightly. If we have a smaller group of applicants for a particular year, the application number might go down slightly. We give a general range, especially for those programs that have additional requirements, because we're looking at a combination of your grades and any other information that you're supplying to us in those additional requirements. That's why we don't have a very particular number, a particular cutoff, because again, some students might have a slightly lower overall IB score. However, they've done very well on their AIF. They've spent lots of great time preparing that, and we can tell they've put a lot into their answers to us, and therefore their AIF score might be slightly higher than another student who has a slightly higher overall IB score. So all of those different components are taken into consideration as part of your application. And that's why there's no guarantee that it will have a, that's why we can't provide you with an exact number. But again, it could be slightly lower, could be slightly higher. Again, it depends on the program and it depends on the applicant pool for that year.
Okay. And then the other question was with regards to A levels, can you please expand more on how admissions works for predicted grades, specifically about how much we may drop when we receive our final grades in August after getting an offer a few months prior?
It's hard to give an exact answer for all programs, but when you receive your offer of admission, it will tell you for any of the required courses if we require a specific minimum in that required course that you need to maintain by the end of the year, what that will be, and your overall average of what we're looking for by the end of the year. This will often look different than the average that you have when you've been admitted. It will often be a little bit lower than your overall average or your individual course grades that you receive, but it really depends on the program that you are admitted into and the faculty that you're part of, as those final conditions is what we call them. Those will differ again by those faculty and the program that you've admitted to. But when you are admitted into the university, you will receive an offer of admission. And that's really important to make sure that you're reading those details. We'll talk a lot about this later in the cycle, but that will give you things like your final conditions and anything that you need to maintain in order to hold and maintain your offer at the university.
Thank you, Amelia. So we have answered quite a couple questions. Truly, truly appreciate your insight on these. If for whatever reason we didn't get to your questions, not to worry at all. We have our links, our emails that will be stated in the next slide. And also there will be a recording. So you could go back, review what was covered. Your questions may have been answered previously, but all this information will be available to you in a recording very shortly. Thank you so much for that, Amelia. If you have been with us this far, we truly appreciate your attention and joining us and being with us through this entire hour. Just a couple items before we head out. If you have any questions, if we didn't cover your questions and would like to follow up with us, please feel free to send us an email. So we've got our emails up on the screen. If you are studying here in Canada, you can send us an email to liaison@uwaterloo.ca. If you're applying as an international student from out of Canada, send an email through to international.recruitment@uwaterloo.ca. If you've already submitted your application and have questions about it, courses, requirements, any questions you have around your application, please feel free to send an email through to myapplication@uwaterloo.ca. When you do send an email, please be sure to use the email that you applied with so we can easily identify your application and answer your questions better. If you're interested in applying to the engineering program, would like to learn about tips and tricks of applying to engineering, I know this is a hot topic wherever I go, please feel free to log in and join us on October the 22nd. We'll have a virtual webinar that is hosted by our lovely colleagues at the Faculty of Engineering, and this is on October the 22nd. Here at Waterloo, our co-op program is exceptional, and we'll love to tell you a bit more about it and why to choose Waterloo to study and co-op, why co-op is so special here at Waterloo. So please, like I said before, our next webinar is on November the 5th. Please go on our website, register to join the webinar, as we'll love to tell you a bit more about the co-op program here at Waterloo. And then finally, if you're here in the Greater Toronto area, in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, or in the Southern Ontario area and are available to visit our campus, we will love to host you. Fall Open House is coming up on November the 8th. We will share this link with you once this presentation is done on how you can register for Fall Open House. If you're here in Canada, if you're here in the Greater Toronto area, Kitchener-Waterloo area, and would like to join us to come on campus, get a tour of the campus, speak to faculty, meet up with the amazing staff on this team to learn a bit more about the programs that you're interested in, or just to come on campus and see what the space feels like, please join us for Fall Open House. We'll love to have you on campus, and this is happening on November the 8th. Like I said before, if you were not able to capture everything that was presented in today's session, fear not. This presentation is going to be available to you in a recording very shortly, so you can go back, watch it at your own pace and at your own time. I'm truly, truly grateful to have everyone here today, for all those that supported, from the admissions team, for Noor, our student ambassador, Truly, truly grateful for having you support this session. And for everyone that joined and stayed this long, truly appreciate your time and the time you spent with us today. We hope you found this session insightful. Like I said before, if you still have questions, we are here to support you through and through. Please send us an email as we'll be more than happy to support. Thank you again and have a good rest of your day wherever you are. Bye now.